Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into how you can make your business, well, truly unstoppable. And no, I'm not talking about some new marketing gimmick. I'm talking about the actual technology that keeps the lights on. This explainer is really built for leaders, drawing from research by Virtualization Options LLC. So we're going to focus on how to make sure your operations never, and I mean never, go down. Okay, so before we dive into all the technical stuff, let's just ground ourselves in what really matters to any executive, right? Money and risk. I mean, you've probably got a business continuity plan sitting on a shelf somewhere, but what happens when things actually go sideways? It all boils down to this one question. What's the real cost to your business for just one single minute of downtime? According to the folks at Gartner, the average number is a staggering $5,600 a minute. Let that sink in. That's over 300 grand an hour. And you know, for some businesses, like in finance, that number can balloon to over $1 million an hour. So when we're talking about figures like these, preventing downtime suddenly stops being just an IT problem, doesn't it? It becomes a core part of your business strategy. Right, so let's talk about that high cost of failure. And believe me, it's not just about the money you're losing every minute. Hardware disruption hits you everywhere. It can trash customer trust, give your competitors a massive opening, and in some fields, think healthcare or aviation, it can literally be a matter of life and death. This is absolutely a board-level conversation.
So, if getting back online after a failure is already costing you a fortune, how do you get in front of it? Well, it takes a totally different mindset. We have to stop asking, how fast can we fix this? And start asking, how do we make sure it never breaks in the first place? And that, my friends, brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer: fault tolerance.
Okay, so what is fault tolerance? It's not about having a good backup plan. It's about having a system so resilient it just doesn't fail. I love this analogy. Think of it like a trapeze artist who has a net, but the net is so good, they don't just get caught. They bounce right back up to the trapeze without missing a beat. The audience doesn't even know they slipped. The system just absorbs the problem and keeps right on going. Zero disruption.
Now, you've probably heard a similar term thrown around: high availability. And it's really, really important to know the difference, because they promise two completely different things. High availability is all about minimal downtime, a few seconds, maybe a couple of minutes of interruption. But fault tolerance, it aims for zero downtime, none. And when your business absolutely cannot stop, that difference is, well, it's everything.
So, how does this magic actually happen? How do you get to zero downtime? The core idea is surprisingly simple, even though the tech behind it is pretty sophisticated. It all comes down to one thing: getting rid of every single weak link in the chain.
You've heard the saying, right? A chain is only as strong as its weakest link. Well, that's a perfect description of a traditional computer system. It's just a series of links. And if one of those critical links breaks, what the tech folks call a SPOF, a single point of failure, the whole thing just snaps. And poof, your business is offline. Let's just look at a typical old school setup. You've got one power supply. If that goes, bam, you're offline. One network cable. If someone trips over it, bam, you're offline. A single controller for all your data. If that fries, you guessed it, offline. You see the pattern here, right? It's basically a system running on crossed fingers and a bit of hope. But a fault-tolerant system? It builds a completely different kind of chain. It's all about redundancy. Instead of one of anything, you have two, or even three. Instead of one path for your power or your data, you have multiple totally separate paths ready to go. So if one link fails, the system just instantly and automatically switches to the other one. No drama.
So what does this switchover, this failover, actually look like when it happens? It's basically a 3-act play that happens in a fraction of a second. First, the system is always watching itself, and it detects a problem with a component. Second, without missing a beat, it just shifts the work over to the healthy backup component. And third, well, that's the best part. Everything just keeps running normally. Your users, your customers, nobody notices a thing. It's like it never even happened. Okay, so we've got the how down, right? It's all about redundancy and eliminating those weak links. So now let's get back to the why. Let's talk about the bottom line.
How does this fancy architecture actually deliver a real ROI and give you a killer competitive edge?
This is where it gets really interesting. We hear people throw around uptime percentages all the time, like 3 nines or 5 nines. But look at what that actually means in the real world. 99.9% uptime sounds great, doesn't it? But that still adds up to almost 9 hours of downtime every year. That's an entire business day you're dark. Now look at 5 nines uptime, what you get with fault tolerance. We're talking about just over 5 minutes of downtime per year. That's literally the difference between a full-blown crisis meeting and a quick coffee run. It's huge.
And listen, this isn't some theoretical fantasy. Check out this real-world result from a Dell case study. A huge global financial services firm, a company that absolutely cannot afford to go down, had 17 different pieces of hardware fail over about a year and a half. 17! And you know how many times their customers noticed? 0. Not once. That is the power we're talking about.
And the ROI? It can be absolutely massive. Here's a Cisco case study. A big manufacturing company put in a fault-tolerant network. The result? They saved over $4 million in just 1 year because their production lines never had to stop. This stuff doesn't just cost money, it protects profits. It's not an expense, it's an investment that pays for itself. So here's the key thing to really get. This isn't just about having a spare server sitting in a closet. True resilience is built into every single piece of the puzzle, top to bottom. You're looking at servers with multiple power supplies, so if one fails, the other just takes over. For your data storage, it means your information is automatically copied across multiple drives, making a single drive failure totally harmless. And on the network side, your routers and switches have backup brains and multiple roads to send traffic down. If one road gets clogged or closes, the traffic just instantly reroutes. See? Every possible point of failure is thought of ahead of time and eliminated. But it doesn't stop there. This whole field is constantly moving forward. The game is changing from just being resilient to being, well, psychic. Just think about how we've evolved our thinking on this. We started out in what you'd call a reactive mode, right? Something breaks, we scramble to fix it when it breaks. Then we got smarter. We moved to the proactive model of fault tolerance that we've been talking about. Let's build in redundancies so we can survive a break. But now we're entering the predictive era. This is the real game changer. We're using AI to let the systems monitor themselves, figure out that a part is going to fail soon, and then fix the problem before it even happens. It's like fixing a problem that doesn't exist yet. Pretty amazing. So, I'll leave you with this one final thought to chew on. I'm sure your business has a continuity plan. It's probably in a binder or a PDF somewhere, but that plan is just, well, it's just a plan. It depends entirely on the hardware it runs on. So the real question you have to ask yourself is this: does your hardware have its own built-in continuity plan? Is your core infrastructure just sitting there waiting for the next inevitable failure, or is it actually engineered from the ground up to be unstoppable?